welcome to another Mr. Betabyte video. And this one's a little bit different insofar as we're going to be looking at the VU meters fitted to the HF100. This is part 2 of the perfect HF100 machine series. There more than likely will be a part 3 because we've got some fun issues with this machine. But in this one, mainly we're going to be looking at the VU meters and how to repair them and swap out the LEDs and get them working again. It's a fairly common misconception that when the VU meters start playing up, it's actually the chips, the blobs on the printed circuit board that are causing the problem, but it's very, very seldom. I've never known the actual chips themselves cause a problem. It's always the LEDs. Now the LEDs, obviously from this era, it's really early in the development of LEDs, and they do fail. I mean, these machines are getting on 40 years old, so it's understandable that with the early technology and the way these were glued, they were sort of almost spotted and then epoxied over the top. A very weird way of mounting them by modern standards, that they are going to fail. So what we'll do is strip down the board and put on some new LEDs. So let's crack on. This module is actually from another machine. What I tend to do is I keep a spare module and get that one sorted and then swap them out. So I always have a spare. And this one is in pretty good condition, but the LEDs, if I just apply some power, you can see there that we've only got 3 LEDs, 3 green ones. Now I will say, when I took the cover off, there were more working, and if I prod around, you might be able to get some more going. What tends to happen, first of all, it's a common thing said on the internet and elsewhere that these blobs here are the chips, the controlling chips, and they are what cause these to fail. And in my experience, there we go, you can just see the red starting to work there. See some flickering. I've done a lot of these now, and I've never found these chips to be bad. It's always the LEDs, but it isn't the LEDs themselves. Usually, so you see there, if I press down, I'm getting them to work again. It's slightly odd how they are powered as well. Oh, those have gone out now. They seem to be powered in groups of 3 somehow. I don't know. I still haven't worked out how they work. It's very difficult to do any sort of R&D into how these actually work, because obviously we don't know what the chips are. No schematics. There's no information on these. It's just a unit in its own right. Let's see if we can get any more going. But what seems to happen is these LEDs, that they are minute, and I believe they're glued on with a little bit of epoxy, sort of making the connection to the gold contacts, and that breaks down. You can see the red trying to work there. There we go. So 9 times out of 10, the LEDs themselves are actually okay. It's just literally their connection to the board that seems to degrade with time. So yeah, it's fair enough, I suppose. I mean, it's early LED technology anyway, so it's amazing. You see a machine with them working, and it's amazing that they are working. But invariably, they do go bad. The HF950 also has the same problem, but the circuit board is much finer on those, so I tend to use smaller LEDs again. But yeah, so what I'm going to do now is start hacking off the LEDs and putting new ones on. So far so good, first 3 done. If you're testing this, first of all, I test the module as I go along. So first 2 pins here are the positive, and then the third one is the negative, looking from the front of the board. So to solder on 12 volts in, and don't get it the wrong way round because it will blow the lots. If you put one LED on and you power it on, you'll see that when you power it on, you get a brief blink, and when you power it off, you get a brief blink off. Once you've done the first 3, you'll see they'll all stay on. So yeah, don't worry about oh, I've done something wrong, oh, it's not going to work, or whatever. It will work. It's just you've got to do them in groups because of the way the chips actually power the LEDs. So yeah, just take it slowly. Soldering, I will say, I don't know why, but I'm not that good at soldering these. I do a reliable job, but I don't do a tidy job. I just find it really hard to get it really nice and tidy. You can see there, I managed to get some solder onto the pad above it, and it just flowed, you know. But yeah, it's fine. It doesn't matter as long as you're not shorting anything else. I will say, if you do short out anything, the chips are actually fairly forgiving. I did a 950 in the early days, sort of it's about the second one I did, and I really made a mess of it, to be honest. I thought I was being clever and cleaned off all of this with a fiberglass pencil, and thought, oh yeah, nice and clean, get it perfect, solder them on, and it was a mess. It was really a bad idea. So you've got to literally just clean off just enough to solder where you need to solder for the LEDs. Any more than that, you're going to start getting solder running everywhere and potentially short stuff out and whatever. When the HF100 isn't actually as bad, but the 950 is critical, and you'll get it sort of onto these portions here. So yeah, just be careful, but yeah, keep it down to a minimum, how much you scrape off. And I do actually, once I've scraped off the material, it's like, it's almost like wax almost, partially covering it, so I do use a cotton bud or a Q-tip just to, with some alcohol on, some isopropyl, and just clean it off, get it nice and clean, and I scrape a little bit of the gold just to get it so it's nice and shiny, and then put the solder on, and job's a good one. So, time to do the next lot. So the top row is done, and not my best soldering, I have to say. It's a little bit fiddly. I'm just using a standard iron, but yeah, all good. So time to do the next row. All done, and working really well. And it is quite difficult to do, as you have to be quite careful even on the HF100 board, especially this LED here. There's a very fine track that runs next to the pad that you need to solder to, so it's quite fun. But yeah, all done. I'm really pleased with that. So let's put the cover back on it and see what it looks like. It's all done. Cover back on. As you can see, it is a lot brighter, but I do have what is it? I can't remember what the percentage is, but I have lighting gel that can just dull this down a bit, especially on the HF100 where the clock display can be quite dull. You don't want these things shouting out in sort of maximum brightness. They are brighter than the originals, but the colour warmth is the same. So they actually look really nice, and like I say, with a bit of gel on there as well, just to dampen down the brightness, they work really well. So the next thing is to install those new VU meters. Say new, they're not new. Rebuilt. So this one, just going to get the tape out, so I left it in there, which is a bit bad. And disconnect that. One thing you've got to watch out for when you take the front off is volume control comes with this. There's volume control for the headphones. So just be aware of that when you take the front off and it pops off and disappears into oblivion. So the other thing, of course, is to make sure all of these switches are in the down position, because when you put the front cover on, these will all drop down, and you can see here they need to locate into the switches properly, and if they don't, then you do actually risk cracking the plastic, so just be aware of that. Just before I do the VU meter swap, I wasn't getting any hi-fi sound, and I just put it to one side. I thought, I've got so much on, I haven't got time really to investigate. And then I was thinking about a week ago, did I solder the top of the assembly, the connections to the hi-fi heads? And I haven't. Just sort of dawned on me one night. It's like, oh, I bet I haven't soldered them, and I haven't. So going to do that next. So let's do the VU meters. So get the old one out. Yeah, I was going to say we'll have a look at it, but we won't, because I will put these on the power supply and get these repaired. So invariably you can get away with not having to remove this board, but I find it's really a faff, and ultimately 9 times out of 10 you're going to find the plug at the other end actually gets caught anyway, so you might as well just remove it now and be done with this. Depending as well, sometimes they have some cable management which will stop it from sliding out as well. So let's lift that out of the way. So the connector is actually there, and I have actually had these capacitors go leaky on a couple of decks, and you can usually tell when they are because they actually have green on the base of them, and that can cause all sorts of weird, wonderful things with the VU meters. So you can, it's a bit of a fiddle, but you can actually get this connector out without having to lift this board. So yeah, let's do that now. Oh, I might have to lift that board. It's actually quite, it's really very trapped. It's well and truly on that socket. Usually you can just give them a little tug and that's enough to get them out. Yeah, so this one has a tie. I think most of them do. If they've never been touched before, if the machines have never been touched before, and this is a very clean machine, they will have this this wire tie around the cabling. So if I pull this, you can see it moving there. So yeah, I'm going to lift this board, I think, and let's do it properly and try and keep it original as possible. And obviously I'm changing the VU meters with ones that have much brighter LEDs on. That's fine. So 2 screws at the back, and they're sort of a bit of a greeny colour. It's another sign that this has not been touched. It's just such an amazingly clean machine. It's lovely. It's probably one of the nicest HF100s I've seen. So it's lovely that it's got brand new heads in it. Fourth screw coming out there. And we've got a clip here, and this should then move out the way, like so. So let's just put you around there, and we unplug this. Undo the cable tie. I'm debating when I'm going to put this back in because it is really difficult to get in here. As much as I'd love to keep it authentic, the more I sort of try and get this undone, the more I'm thinking, gosh, how am I ever going to get this back like it was? And I do wonder if every single machine actually did have that tie on, but obviously once they've been worked on, they never get put back on because they are just so difficult to fit. And it's got quartz. So there's that one. Just feed that cable back in. Oop. And plug that back in there. And I'm going to put this, I am going to put it back on, but I'm not going to put it in the same place. I'm just going to put it here. Not nearly as nice as Sony did it. So there we go. It's actually really dust free. I haven't dusted this board, I don't think. But to be fair, there's so little dust on it that I'm quite happy to leave that. Yeah, it's really clean, to be fair. So let's put that back down and get the screws back in. And just have to be aware of this cabling. I managed to get quartz. Just put that like so, that's fine. Line that up. Red screws. Okay, so let's see what these meters look like. And turn it on. And there we go. So, I mean, the clock isn't too bad on this. that those LEDs are still pretty bright. I'm just going to put the camera light off. So you see they're pretty bright. So I will put some gel on there, probably just one layer, to be honest, so they're not quite so bright. And then we can put the front cover on and give it a test. I'm going to put just one layer of gel on the VU meters, just so they're not overpowering. So how I do this is I use some red tape. Also use this for iPad repairs, various widths. Straight down the middle. Doesn't matter if it's not quite long enough. It's enough to do it. It also doesn't matter. It's not quite straight as long as it's not going over the LEDs themselves. And then try and get the red off without pulling the double-sided back off. That hasn't gone very well. There we go. And then trying desperately hard not to get fingerprints on it. There we go. That's a bit darker, which I think that'll be enough. To be fair, just to get it just a little bit duller. So let's put tape in. So I've got a hi-fi, but I don't have any audio. So there we go. It's looking pretty good. Maybe still a little bit on the bright side, but you compare it to the clock, I think that's okay. I don't want to dull it down too much. I did have one comment left actually about using LEDs that aren't quite the right colour temperature, and using different coloured gels to actually achieve the right colour temperature, which is something I will have a look at that, because the HF950 VU meters that I replace the LEDs for, those actually they're way too green. These are sort of a little bit more yellow, so yeah, that's something I need to look at. But yeah, really pleased with that, and I do actually have, as you can see on the left there, I do have hi-fi audio now, which is great. It does really help if you solder the heads in. So yeah, let's get it back together and we'll give it a test. So there we have it. The VU meters are working really well, and they look really good, to be fair. They don't look over bright compared to the clock and the other LEDs, but we do still have the hi-fi audio side not working, and we still do have not the best image. It's just not good. Despite my stupidity with not soldering those the top of the AFM heads, so I can't believe I did that, but hey ho. So, what we're going to do in part 3 is look at the issues with the playback and hopefully test recording as well, and sort out the AFM side of it as well, the hi-fi stereo. So with that, thank you very much for watching, and see you in another video. Bye for now.